For all of y'all out there that are in corporate America, can you imagine leaving your $400,000 a year job and then just moving to paradise? Well, we talked to somebody that's done that and formed a heck of a group and a community. We'll talk to him on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry. We are committed to being good stewards of the environment. We are providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Texas Star Alliance. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Well, hello again, and as always, thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Crude Truth. As we continue into the wonderful year of 2024, we take a look at a lot of emerging groups that are going on and being created. And as always is my co-host, Kristy. Kristy, how are you?
Amazing. How are you?
Doing good.
Good.
These groups are just getting bigger and bigger. And what kind of groups these are like-minded people? Is that the best way to put it?
Like-minded. You attract like-minded people, yes.
Yeah, and they're getting together and they're really kind of forming a community of investors.
Mm-hmm.
And, kind of like the Montalongos are doing,
Correct.
Right? And then you've just got all these other wonderful groups that are doing the same thing. What do you think about those kind of groups?
I actually love them. I want to get in every single one of them.
Okay.
Or maybe create my own.
One of the two.
Something, yeah. Something like that
about.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I know you could do that. But so on this episode, what I did was I reached out to somebody that I know named Patrick Menifee. He actually works with us in the oil and gas space. I guess you'd call him an oil and gas investor.
Okay.
And then he was finally in Austin, Texas, and for a great thing called the GoBundance Emerge. And it's another one of these awesome community groups. And I had a chance to meet real briefly the owner and founder of the group. And we have a chance to have him with us today. And his name is Jamie Gruber. Jamie, how are you?
I'm great. I have a question real quick. Montalongo. I know Paul Montalongo. Is that?
Yep.
Yes.
What's the connection?
We love them.
We love those guys.
They're
great.
They're amazing. They're besties.
We'll tell Paul I said hi for sure. So no, it's good to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Well, thank you so much. And, thank you for coming to the great state of Texas a couple of weeks ago. I know you were down in Austin, so you're definitely in one of the prettier spots of the state, even though the whole state is very pretty, in my opinion. But, but no, Jamie, tell us about yourself. And, I did that teaser. And that was you. You walked away from your $400,000 a year job. Let's talk, who are you to walk away from that job?
That's a good question.
Great question. I'm kind of amazed that I did it. So I was at 21 years old, I became a claims adjuster with a big insurance company called Progressive. And I quickly started to move up the ranks. I was pretty good at negotiating claims, resolving things, that sort of thing. And so by 23, 24, I was a supervisor. By 25, I had a kind of a territory that I oversaw. And then eventually I moved to Boston for a higher level position. And eventually in 2017, after years of doing different things within the company to try to get there, I took on an executive role. So that means big equity, big office, big team, big income, big salary, all of that stuff. And that moved me from Boston to Michigan. Once I got there, actually Michigan, we kind of fell in love with, didn't expect to, but it was beautiful there. But more than anything, I realized, man, I'd been searching for something to fulfill what was missing. Something was missing, and I was searching for that thing to fulfill it. I thought it was the job. I thought it was, I'm just misleveled. Once I get to the right level, once I'm being paid and recognized for how much value I bring, that'll be where I feel that sense of fulfillment. And it's the job. You stay there, you get all this equity over the years, equity every year. And one day you retire with millions in the bank and you're good to go. But within about 30 days of getting that job, I was honestly miserable. I didn't like what I was doing anymore. I was there 17 years at the time, and something just broke. And I always like to say, I think in that year, my ego kind of got confronted by my authenticity, which I had diverged from for 17 years up to that point, and this sort of internal epic battle ensued. With my authentic self eventually winning, I went through depression. I went through, sleepless nights, a couple of years of just, what am I going to do now? I'm making a great living. My wife doesn't work. I had one boy when we moved. We had a second kid after we moved. How do I replace this income? How do I replace this lifestyle? What am I going to do? I found my way to real estate investing and started investing in first some single family duplexes and then eventually multifamily, and expanded on that. But even within that, I really love what real estate does. But where I got more fulfillment was on the sort of networking and interactive side of real estate. Investors tend to be high-minded. They tend to be people that are driven toward big goals. And that was more interesting to me than, underwriting a deal or actually buying the property. So I built a bit of a brand in the real estate space, expanded on that to become a little bit more of an overall entrepreneurial brand as I was moving toward eventually quitting my job. And at some point, after I joined this community called GoBundance, which is a high net worth men's mastermind group, the founder said, "Hey, we want to build a future millionaires club. Would you want to do it?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go. I know nothing about it, but let's go." So I partnered with them. We built what's called GoBundance Emerge. I launched it in, I guess it would be November of 2020. And in April of 2021, I just decided, not because I was making any money on it, but you know what? I'm going to live on a little bit of runway. I'm going to go on faith, and I'm going to quit this big job. And I walked away April 9, 2021, and it's been a fun ride ever since.
Jeez. And now you're living in paradise. I mean,
yeah, a year later, after I realized we weren't going to go broke, we sort of exacted a goal, which was the whole time I was anchored on this vision of, look, I just want to be able to travel with my family 3+ months anywhere we want to go. Yeah. My wife's originally from the DR. She immigrated when she was a kid, but she still has family here. So we thought, you know what? Good first place to go. We came for a year. We're going on year 3. So we've kind of fallen in love with what we're doing down here.
It's beautiful there. I love visiting there. So God bless you.
Thank you.
You mentioned that, you had that inner struggle between your authentic self and your ego. I feel like I think you're rubbing off on me a little bit on your question. Sometimes I think a lot of us have that struggle every day. How did you recognize it? And, it didn't sound like it was an overnight battle. It sounded like it took some time. Let's dive into that for a minute.
Yeah, it did. It took a while. And what I learned, without getting into every little nitty-gritty piece of it, but on that journey of, say, let's call it 2018 to 2021, when I finally left my job, what I learned about myself was the thing that I was struggling with the most, the reason why I was feeling misplaced or how I had diverged from my authenticity was less because the ego was in control. That's what I felt at the time. But it was more because of the relationship I had with my own ego. So the Stoics talk about ego death or killing the ego, or the ego is the enemy. And I literally bought into that line my whole life. Like, ego's bad, kick it to the corner. You want to get rid of your ego. Don't allow your ego to be part of you or whatever. And when I went through this journey and I got deep into certain things, personal development retreats, even psychedelics at one point, what I learned about myself was, man, you know what? The one thing holding me back from having everything I want is that I keep pushing my ego down and I'm not learning how to partner with it. So I took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy going through some things that sound very practical and then some things that are going to sound very woo-woo to really repair the relationship with my ego, to almost become a partner with it. Because I've realized this, if I'm going to put a goal across the room, something I want to accomplish, I ask myself who I am to go get it, and I ask my ego to go get it. My ego is going to get there before anybody. So everything that I've accomplished in this life, everything I've overcome, everything that I've been afraid to do but did it anyway, it's all because of the ego. When I thought, no, I had to kill that thing. So my ego and I guess you could say, have learned how to really work together in partnership to achieve what I want to achieve, as opposed to me trying to separate myself from it. So I think that was the lesson I learned after I went through a year or two of not sleeping and not being present and being sort of like Adam Sandler in Click, if you remember that movie, just sitting at the table eating while life was happening around me. I went through all of that, and I really learned and still work on making sure that I check in with my ego, that I partner with my ego, that I don't allow it to take control, because when it does, bad things happen, but partner with it in order to achieve whatever it is I'm trying to achieve.
That was going to be my question, the ego. Obviously, the ego is a good thing, but if it takes over, then that's where we spiral downhill.
It's a delicate balance. You have to sort of walk that line between, it being the driver and you don't want to kick it to the corner either. But sort of, again, it's just like anything. It's like having a best friend that's always there for you. They might be a little annoying. They might, when they get a couple in them, you don't want to be hanging out with them, right? Like that's kind of the ego.
Yeah.
But if they're always there, you just find space for that person. Like when I'm down, they're there. So that's kind of what I look at the ego as, is that crazy best friend that you got to kind of keep in check. But, you also understand the value of having them in your life.
So obviously the ego, I do life coaching as well. So the ego is a big, I guess, fine line. How did you go about learning about keeping your ego? Did you learn yourself? Did you get information somewhere? Did you have a mentor? Like, how did you understand that your ego is kind of your best friend, but not let it get up here? Just keep it equal.
So this is an odd entry line to answer that question, but we'll start with it and we'll unpack it. I've never done a drug in my life. So I'll start with that. Okay. So when the idea was presented to me at actually a GoBundance event in a room of what we call our champion members, which are 10 plus million net worth. So there's guys in the room, 80, 100, 200, 300, $400 million in net worth. And I'm at this event, attending, and I hear the topic of psychedelics come up. And in that topic, the matter-of-factness with which the room addressed it or talked about it, all these really high achievers, it was just sort of like part of a routine. It's like, well, duh, you have to put gas in your car. You have to wake up, you have breakfast, you have psychedelic retreats along, through your journey.
Yes.
So it was interesting to me to explore. I read some books, watched some documentaries or whatever, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try psilocybin, mushrooms. So I found an actual therapist who does not only the administration of, but pre and post integration sessions on leveraging something like mushrooms to sort of deep dive your spirituality. We'll see. We'll say. So I think it's three different things in that realm. First was the first session I went into with the intention of what is keeping me from being the best version of myself. And in that session, it felt I took 5.5 grams, like a hero's dose of mushrooms, and it was fully facilitated, recorded, which I haven't listened to, but it was recorded. And I had this sort of dark, evil force come after me, something that you hear about people going mad about. And it scared the hell out of me. And in the integration session, what I learned was that's your ego. Your ego saying, hey, you want to know how to be the best version of yourself. You keep kicking me to the corner. Actually partner with me and we can do some things. Wow. Then I went through something called constellation healing. I don't know if you've done that before, but where I literally confronted sort of, and again, this is where the woo comes in, the physical manifestation of my ego in a room. Another human being felt the energy enough to play my ego and allowed me to kind of have a conversation with it. That healing led me to my second and final psilocybin retreat, where there was, it was very, there was a lot of healing in that. It wasn't dark, it wasn't heavy, it was the same dosage, but there was sort of this round table that I was at with all aspects of myself, my authenticity, my ego, my sense of humor, my whatever, my inner child, all of us sort of partnering on what's going to happen next in my life. And those three separate sessions, those three separate, deep dives with a lot of work in between each of them, for me was the path quickly to starting the process of healing my relationship with my ego. Hope that answers your question.
That answered it tremendously. And I love that answer, actually, because so many people that obviously are in the network that you talk about, they do the retreats, is it the ayahuasca retreats?
Ayahuasca, yeah. Psilocybin, ketamine.
Yeah. Yes. And so it's very interesting just to hear that so many multimillionaires or billionaires are doing that to tap into what their gifts are and their purpose, how to create these business entities and stuff like that. And I know people are so on the fence about it, but it's very, very interesting. And not to dive into that because I could go down the rabbit hole with you because I love all that stuff, but it's very empowering just to know that you obviously embraced that and killed your ego, but parted with it at the same time. You tapped into the inner child healing aspect, which is so powerful because your ego technically is your inner child. It's your best friend and you grab your hand and let's go. We're doing this together. You're safe and all those things that you work into. So I don't know. That's just so interesting. I want to dive more into that. So that's amazing.
No, well, I to your point, without going way into the depths of this, for me as a corporate guy, right? 21 years, I need things to make sense. There's a great book and documentary by Michael Pollan called How to Change Your Mind. So that was sort of the science, the background. It really took this sort of like, oh man, guys doing shrooms somewhere up in Michigan, that weird, like with a tie-dye peace symbol on my chest sort of view that I had of that whole world, to like, oh, actually, I understand the power of these, and again, not getting too deep into it, but to know that these were heavily researched and heavily used for helping people cure certain mental ailments, addiction, that sort of thing. In the 20s, 30s, and 40s, the hippies made it look bad, so the government dried up all funding. And in the 90s, they started to fund this research again. So it's not as if it's some weird underbelly getting high and stoned on a weekend sort of thing. It's actually something with scientific evidence to help people, as simple as change the way in which you're thinking about your life, all the way up through curing addiction or helping to heal addiction and that sort of thing.
It literally rewires your brain because you're pivoting that certain functions that are in the brain, and you're rewiring the systems and the neurons, and it's very interesting. So
with all of that talk, okay, and as me, first of all, thank you for sharing with us, your path, because it's the crude truth. And so even though, this show is about oil and gas, and I use quotations for our listeners out there, this is what it's about. But also the fact that you took that journey and now you've taken GoBundance Emerge and just skyrocketed. So it's like, if for people to understand, it's like you went through that entire journey. And when you said, hey, I'll do GoBundance Emerge, you didn't hesitate. You said, yes, let's do it. And I think that's something you and I definitely have in common, because you know what? You can't hesitate in the oil and gas industry or any type of investor. It's like, you're going to do your due diligence and boom, you're going to get into it. So let's talk about GoBundance Emerge and what you guys are doing and why you have such a large community, and why you'll only continue to thrive.
Yeah, what I love about when I joined GoBundance, the sort of the Millionaires Club, if you will, what I loved about it was that it wasn't a program. It wasn't a 12 steps to achieve something. It wasn't a course or something like that. And there's no guru. There's no person out in front that knows it all, and you follow their steps and you get to achieve whatever they achieved. Yeah. It's truly peer-to-peer. It's truly a premier peer-to-peer networking group. And that's the energy, obviously, that we brought when we built GoBundance Emerge. It's like, well, it's in the vein of GoBundance, right? Like, so all these millionaire men, so let's build GoBundance Emerge in the same way. So what's been great about it, in my opinion, is, you're not coming into some sort of sale or some sort of thing that steps or whatever. It's very realistic. It's like, look, I'm going to assemble a bunch of people that we vet and talk to and make sure that they're the right fit for this community, that are aligned around certain principles. And GoBundance has, like any organization, any community has certain pillars, right? So it's around health, relationships, wealth, contribution, accountability, and there's another one I can't think of right now. But anyway, there's 6 different pillars that we align around. So all the people in the group are looking for progress in those pillars and accountability for achieving whatever they want to in those pillars. And we use different tools and technology, if you will, within the group that helps people. But to me, what it boils down to is simply this, and this is my own story of what Emerge is all about. When I was a high-level W-2 guy, when I was an executive in an insurance company, and I dared think about doing something other than that, invest in real estate, start a business or whatever, people are initially supportive. Oh, that's cool. You bought a house. Yeah, I should do something like that. That makes sense. Then you buy a second and a third house, and people start to like, what are you doing? You quitting your job? Then as you start to build more, you get the naysayers who have heard something, and then they regurgitate that as if they know. Like, I don't know if you want to get in this real estate thing, man. Like, my Uncle Tony went bankrupt, or do you really want to be answering 2 a.m. calls and all of that stuff? So when you start to share ambitions that deviate from the norm, it's uncomfortable for what I call your remember when friends. So these are the folks who have always known you for who you are and who you've been, and they really just want to keep you safe. If you're going to diverge from who they remember you to be, they want to pull you back in. Like, wait a minute, just be careful. You got a great job. What are you thinking? You don't want to go too far on this. What if your company finds out you've got this side hustle or whatever? I needed imagine when friends. And that's what GoBundance was. That's what GoBundance Emerge is for people. It's saying, okay, look, I have great remember when friends. I'll always have them in my life. I love them. But this thing that I have, this beautiful vision or goal that I've curated and I've thought about and I've stayed up at night writing and thinking about, and I want to make real, I can't give it to my remember when friends. But when I give it to my imagine when friends, something really cool happened, which is the moment I deviated from this, which is not even me yet, but where I'm going, my imagine when friends who don't know anything about who I've been would hold me accountable and make sure I don't lose my nerve in going toward where I said I wanted to go. So that's what GoBundance Emerge have done, I believe, is created an imagine when network for people to help you go forward when we all want to go back, because it gets hard. It gets weird. You get exposed. Your old friends, hey, I was right. You shouldn't have gone that far. All of that happens with your remember when friends. The imagine when friends are the ones who just, that one day when it might all break down, they just prop you up enough so that the next day you can continue to make progress. And to me, I always say in the first 40 years of my life, I had a good life. I grew up in a great family, got married to the girl of my dreams 15 years ago. We've had 2 kids, and I climbed a ladder for 21 years to a corporate level that most don't achieve. In the 5 years after I left, I've bought and sold 41 units of real estate, syndicated 250 more. I have a top podcast called Tribe of Millionaires. I moved out of the country, and so much more is happening now in my own personal brand in 5 years, only because I finally dared to be me and share that version of me with people who don't care about who I've been, who only care about where I'm going. So remember when versus imagine when, friends. I think that's the secret to a great community. And that's what I think GoBundance has done well.
I love that you use that terminology, because so many people that are trying to go forward with their dreams are not what, the universe is telling us we have to go work a 9-to-5 or get a salary or stuff like that. We're stuck with that. Nope, you can't do that. But the ones that want to jump out and conquer their purpose, they don't know how to do that. They want to, but there's not much, now obviously we're finding out these, by meeting you, I'm like, woo, getting chills just from the energy on the Zoom from you. So it's so empowering that you're doing that, because even me as a female, a woman that didn't work for many years and coming into my own business and entity and stuff like that, he and I talk all the time, but we have this dream, but it's like, you need to be around people that support you and don't think that you're crazy because you're a female and you want to get into oil and gas or do this, or, him being a successful businessman and the oil and gas, and just like people are going to hate on you, but you have to be so strong that you have that community that people are going to hate because you're doing something right and changing your mindset. So that's
100%. I'm a corporate guy by 21 years, so most of my life. So I need things to make sense. And I've been the guy who would have said to me explaining that, like, wait, so you pay for internet friends? I don't understand. Like, so what do they get? What do you get for that? Right? Like, it's just, I'm a consumer. We all are. So like you spend, in the case of GoBundance Emerge, $5,000 a year. If you go to the higher levels, it's $12,500 or $20,000 a year, depending on which level you go into. People are like, and what do you get? Because we all expect the keys, to the house or to the car. We expect the exchange of goods for the money. And it's like, I get nothing but access to amazing people that I get to serve. And by doing so, because we all know if we're in service to others in our lives, it returns.
Yes.
I'm being connected to and serving guys that are at levels way beyond anything I've ever experienced. I went to a ball game, major league game in the owner's suite because one of the guys owns a major league baseball team. I didn't know those people in my remember when life, right? I didn't know those people in my corporate life. Maybe 300 level seats that the company will let me expense. But that's about it. But the sit in the owner's suite comes when you're intentional about aligning with other people who represent where you're going, as opposed to anchoring into only who you've been. That's my take.
That's powerful too, because I read Neville Goddard. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he teaches about basically living in your emotions, and your brain have to live in where you want to be, not where you are now. And so yes, it's good to be present, but you have to feel where you're going. If you want to be a billionaire, you have to act like a billionaire. You have to portray, your verbiage, everything, be around and stuff like that. And so it's like living in the future, but at the present at the same time. So it's interesting that you just say the 300, and then now you're in the owner's suite, and how you're around that synchronicity of your life, and it's bringing so much, I'm sure, financial, but not only that, your soul abundance, because you're giving and you're receiving what you're supposed to from whatever you believe in. You're getting filled from that.
Completely agree.
Jamie, I want to highlight kind of what we've and kind of combine some of the things. Is that one, you partnered with your ego, and in 5 years again, you've done what? You've sold over 40 properties, syndicated over 200 in a 5-year span, and grown your net worth beyond what you were even doing in the corporate world. And I think that's something that I can definitely resonate with, is like, hey, you have to step out on your own, and you're going to invest not only in a project, but in yourself. And that's what you at GoBundance is doing. That's what you're doing with that investment. It's an investment that you're making into that group, into that community. And just look at all the things that you've done. And like, Kristy just highlighted, you went from 300 section seats to the owner's box. and the time frame that you've done that. And I think, nobody sees that 21 years, and so I cannot thank you enough for sharing that. Because it's so important to know, like as George Strait said, or whoever it was, we're not an overnight success, unfortunately. As much as people want to say that, it's like they don't see all the hard work that went into this beforehand. They just see what it is now, and it's like, well, you don't know all the pains that I've gone through, the heartache, the investment dollars. I mean, I don't know how many times it's like, just to be where I'm at, don't ask me how much I've lost. But with with your group and your community, you mentioned that you guys are always doing things, and I want to kind of talk about that, because we're grown up now in a society where it's all individualism. That, hey, we need to do it this way, we do it this way. Well, when you go back and look at all the successfuls in the world, whether it's Rockefeller or it's J.P. Morgan or all the big family oil and gas companies, they've always worked as a community and worked together. And so is that something that you guys promote there at GoBundance?
Oh my God. I just as an example, coffee company out of Colombia owned by a group, one of whom is a GoBundance member. So to be exposed to him and for him to say, hey, because we're in this group, whatever, I'm going to offer shares at a discounted rate, got in early on and it's doing really well. So there's a ton of collaboration. And on that point, I had Grant Cardone on my podcast. Some hate him, some love him. That's not the point. But I asked him a specific question about being a category king, because he's got he's the king of his own category. And he said, man, you know what? When I was younger, what I learned was you got to go head on at whoever the king is right now. You got to go after him. You got to attack him and take him down. He goes, my success came when I went from competition to collaboration. He's like, when I learned to collaborate with the category kings and do business with and partner with, he's like, everything changed. And it's the same thing for me. When I got into a group like GoBundance, I mean, look, my syndication business partner is a GoBundance member. I mentioned the coffee company I invested in. I'm sitting on the board of a tech startup who's a GoBundance member. Like, tons of collaboration there. But the secret, the key to it, and I talk to people about this all the time, whether they're joining GoBundance or any other mastermind group or anything like that, is, again, you want to go in and say, what do I give this money? What's the ROI I get? And a good one shouldn't give you a definitive ROI, because that to me is impossible. Like, it's your action that's going to determine it. But it's really, for me, more like, is this the group that I want to contribute my money? And then go in with the intention of, how do I serve everyone there? When you do that, the return comes. If you go in with the idea of, what do I get? The return may never come. But if you go in with the idea of, what can I give? It'll come. Yeah. But that's, I think, collaboration and that giving attitude is, I mean, I've learned it, at least in my short entrepreneurial career. It's everything. It literally is everything.
Yeah. And what's the name of your podcast one more time? I know you mentioned it earlier.
No, it's okay. Tribe of Millionaires. That's the name of the podcast.
Want to make sure that everybody, want to make sure it gets out there. And I like how you mentioned your community there. And if I may, again, we met through one of your members there, Patrick Menifee, and he's done some projects with Pecos Country Operating, and he had recommended it to some other people in his community. And I know for him to do that, Jamie, it was an honor and nerve-wracking all at the same time, because I felt the closeness of the community that he was a part of, which at the time I didn't know, maybe, what group it was a part of. But it was an honor to take on that responsibility, to give those, to work hard for him and that group that came into this. So I felt like it was like, okay, not only can I not let me and my family down, but I can't let Patrick down and his family. And so I just want to say that that's the kind of community that I feel with your group over there. It's like, y'all are a tight-knit group that really focuses on helping each other out rather than how are you going to help me out. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that means a lot. I completely agree. Yeah.
I like that part that you said, in competition versus being around the community to support each other, because that's what so many talk about. I'm competing. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to this. No, if you come together, the church or whatever, the more come together with like-mindedness, the more that you grow and prosper. So
you do, we talk about ego. And if I may, whenever we talk about ego, I think of one quiet one and two loud ones. The two loud ones are Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and then Tim Duncan. I'm a big Spurs fan, but you look at what Michael Jordan did in the 90s, and then let's bring in Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. He attacked those guys one after the 92 Olympics. He just skyrocketed. Why? Because they had become a team together and worked together in some form or fashion after years of battling. But also with the ego, it's like, hey, I'm going to do this. This is my dream. And that's what all three of them that I mentioned had, all five of those guys. It was like, we're going to do this dream and we're going to come. I'm either going to drag you kicking and screaming, or you're not going to be part of my dream. And, I think those are some guys that love them or hate them, kind of the same thing. They were able to partner with their ego to really thrive and only excel and create a community around them. Because you really don't hear people say anything bad from a team standpoint from any of those guys. So I really appreciate you saying that.
It's funny to say about Kobe. Like, the memory of Kobe now is legendary, right? Like, he was an incredible competitor and everything. And I'm a huge Kobe fan, so I agree. But if you go back into the middle of his career, he was not liked.
No.
He was not liked. He was not a team guy. He seemed very selfish and everything else. To your point, when he got to the point of understanding how to lead and how to bring people along, not just chastise and kick them because they weren't at his level or at his standards, like, that was really the turning point for his legacy, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if he didn't have that second half of his career where he was more of a collaborator, still high standards, driven guy, no nonsense, no doubt, but he did it in a way that was collaborative with his teammates, with others, as opposed to in competition with it. Kobe's legend is only what it is today, I think, because of that second half of his career. And to be honest with you, I think part of that was that another Olympic team that he jumped on with the Redeem team. I think it was in 2010 or whatever.
Yes.
2008.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's real funny how that whole thing kind of works. And so what I think is really neat is that you, with your experiences, for individuals that, again, have not experienced maybe some of these retreats or these things like that, we can just learn from your experiences and only continue to thrive in a community like that. So again, what y'all are doing at GoBundance Emerge is just amazing. And again, that's a group of a lot of high W-2 income earners, correct? Am I saying that right?
No, Emerge is probably 70% higher income W-2 and then 30% entrepreneur. And as you go up sort of to the different levels, it flips. So you get into the, like I said, the champion level, that's all high-end entrepreneurs, very few W-2, if any.
So basically anybody that joins at a lower level is going to get to that high one, right?
Yeah, we've had about 90 in the last 3 years go from, not quite at that multi-million level yet to multimillionaire and beyond, which has been really cool. Very, very satisfying.
That says a lot.
Say that again, please. I want everybody to re-listen to that.
Yeah. 90 folks. And again, I can tangibly look at what they did to get there. It was the same pattern I took, which was, how do I serve? How do I get involved? How do I do things selflessly? And things just kind of came to them. Partnerships with guys that were in the GoBundance Elite Champion, multi-million-dollar rank. The taking chances on things they didn't think possible because they consistently engaged with other people in the community. Imagine when people who didn't allow them to lose their nerve. So yeah, to have 90 so far, kind of go up to that level has been really, really fulfilling for me.
And how can people, and what kind of people are y'all looking for? I know I mentioned W-2, but what are you looking for? Because I know it's an application you have to fill out.
Yeah, entrepreneurial-minded folks, I would say, not necessarily have to be entrepreneurs, but honestly, when we first started it, I expected, because, we had GoBundance, which at the time was 1 million plus. Now it's 2 million plus to be a member of. So I expected that our membership would be like 25, 26-year-old, just starting out and all of that. But honestly, what it really is, if I had to peg it, it's like 38-year-old dad, father of two, making 180 to 220 a year. They've got a good 401k, but that's really it. I've never been exposed to investing in anything else. So net worth or investment is, maybe they've got a TD Ameritrade account that they dabble in or that sort of thing. But so that person who's at that point in life where they're just sort of saying, man, I'm halfway through or about halfway through or in that halfway through time frame, and I don't know that this is for me. Whatever it is, the business that I'm in, I'm a slave to it. The job that I have, I don't love it. The company that I formed, I don't know if it's really for me anymore. Whatever it is, they're at this point where they just don't know how to break away from it because they formed such identity in it, as I have, and they just need people around them that make it possible to be the next, Colonel Sanders at 69 who starts a KFC, to be the next Mary Kay who started a business in her mid to late 40s that became a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. That's what they're looking for, is how do I don't even know the path forward. I just know that there is one for me, and I need people around me and accountability for the vision that maybe I already know, but I won't admit, or the vision I'm not quite clear on just yet.
So you basically are helping them make a breakthrough to where they need
100%.
to. Okay.
100%. That's what it's all about. It's just consistent engagement with people that are not going to allow you to deviate from the path you say you want to go down.
You're locking arms and you're going, balls to the wall, pardon my French, with them to this. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I love that.
She's in the oil and gas industry, you can tell.
Starting to wear off on me. Keep my feminine energy.
Jamie, what you guys are doing is just amazing. And I cannot just wish you nothing but more and more success. How can people get in touch with GoBundance Emerge and really start to join this tribe of millionaires?
Yeah, it's GoBundanceEmerge.com. So GoBundance emerge.com. You can go there. On Instagram, it's at GoBundance Emerge. We have content there. You want to follow me on Instagram, it's at the Jamie Gruber. You can see I document my lifestyle down here in DR. But GoBundanceEmerge.com, fill out the application. One of our member ambassadors will be in touch and sort of do the interview and figure out, are you the right fit for us? Are we the right fit for you? And if so, then we're off and running. And
what's the name of your podcast for everybody out there one more time?
Yeah, it's Tribe of Millionaires. Everywhere you want to see it, on Instagram, on YouTube, on audio episodes. We've had some really cool guests. I mentioned Grant Cardone. We talked about Kobe and Michael, their coach, Tim Grover, I had on.
Yeah.
You had Tim Grover on from Relentless.
I did, yeah.
I may have to get off with you off the show here to talk about that. That's awesome. I enjoy that book.
A live stage interview, which was fun. I've done a few of those. Exhibit, I don't know if you remember Exhibit.
Yeah.
I had a live stage interview with him. That was fun. There's been a bunch. It's been a lot of fun doing the podcast.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, again, Jamie, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. What an experience I had today to learn so much about thinking outside the box, trying to break through those levels, even as, an investor myself, and that how we need to have those visionary friends and how important that is to get to the next level. So I cannot thank you very, very much. Kristy, as always, you brought a lot to it, as always.
Thank you.
And to everybody out there, please, check out his podcast, Tribe of Millionaires, GoBundanceEmerge.com. Jamie Gruber, everybody. Jamie, thank you again so much. And we'll see you all again on another episode of The Crude Truth.
Again, The Crude Truth would like to thank today's sponsors: LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Sandstone Group, Exec Crew, Texas Star Alliance, Pecos Country Operating, and Real News Communication Network.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.